We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Nicole Byer, helping you make those rooms flyer. Today's style tip: when it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild! Like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Ooh, fierce! This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
A magic beyond anything you could ever imagine.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day.
You really think that's the best idea?
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio, this is Hunt Palmer.
It's quite a piece of work.
Off and running, hour number 2 of the Hunt Palmer Show here on Draft Day. Musso in for Hunt. Jacob Beck, Cassie Spazzali, they're along for the ride, and we're happy to have you along for our final hour here before we hand you off to Scone for After Further Review. We spent the first hour talking a lot of NFL draft, did mix some LSU baseball in there as well. Second hour will be a lot more of the same. Talk a lot of draft. Chris Blair, the voice of the Tigers, is with us in about... call it 12 minutes or so here. We'll definitely talk LSU Tennessee with him, but would love to get Chris's thoughts on the LSU guys as they prepare to take their next step in their careers with the NFL draft tonight and, of course, over the next 3 days. So we'll do that here in, again, about 12 minutes with Chris Blair. Did want to kind of reset a little bit of the draft conversation here, though. If you are just hopping in the car or just joining us on YouTube, smash the like button if you haven't already, please. So we led the show today talking about all the smoke around Jackson Dart and the New Orleans Saints. How the odds had surged for Dart to the Saints, even at pick number 9. How you've seen all the mocks projecting them potentially to trade back into the first round, where they might have to get. Is it, are they able to do that at 32 still, or is it more in the 20s that they would have to do so? Well, as is with the draft, it's just very fluid, and we've got odds shifts again that I did want to pass along. Jackson Dart closing the gap over at DraftKings for the number 9 overall pick. When we spoke about this in the first hour, Mykel Williams was the favorite at plus 275. Jackson Dart was right behind him at plus 350. Now, Mykel Williams has come back to the pack a little bit, and Jackson Dart has moved up even more. Mykel Williams now at plus 280, still the favorite, but Dart closing that gap at plus 300, so just 3-1. Again, I'll make a not-so-bold prediction. By the time the Tennessee Titans go on the clock tonight, Jackson Dart will be the favorite to go 9th overall. We'll see if that does come to fruition. But there's one more that I wanted to update that is incredibly interesting. And that is player drafted by odds. Namely, the team that has the best odds or is the favorite to draft a certain player. And when you scroll to Jackson Dart, the New York Giants are the favorite to select Jackson Dart at minus 135. If you're curious, yes, the New Orleans Saints are next at plus 250. This plays into a much bigger conversation when you look at the Giants and how it would impact New Orleans. Because everybody looks at the Giants and at the Browns as your biggest competition for a quarterback. You'd have to get back in front of those teams. The Giants could throw an entire wrench into this draft if they took Jackson Dart at number 3. I don't think they're doing that. I think that's too early. But if they really wanted to shake it up, they could do that. But it certainly feels like the Giants are in the same boat as the Saints, looking to trade back into round 1 to take Jackson Dart. I told y'all in the first segment, what I want the Saints to do is go pick the player they're most convicted in. I don't have to agree with the selection. Do I think they should take Jackson Dart at 9? No, I don't think that's what they should do. But man, if that's your player, that's your guy, you fall in love with him, and you feel convicted about the pick, then go make the pick. And you don't want to risk losing him later in the first round, then go make the pick. But seeing the Giants as the favorite certainly might show that they have more of an inside track to trade back into the first round and get ahead of the Saints, or it could show that they might trade back in the first round as well. And that's the one thing I look at. If the Giants trade back, and again, Adam Schefter had the report earlier in the week that both the Giants and the Browns were fielding calls for the number 2 and number 3 picks respectively. But if the Giants trade back, that's when I think they absolutely are taking a quarterback in the first round. To me, that's the only reason they would trade back. You got Abdul Carter pretty much signed, said, delivered, locked up, judging by the odds at number 3. But there are a lot of teams later in this first round that would salivate at the opportunity to draft Abdul Carter, the best defensive player in the 2025 draft. So if you see the Giants move back, that's quarterback. And if you believe the odds, it's Jackson Dart. And again, if you believe the odds and reports, the Saints are very high on him and would like to draft him also. For what it's worth, those odds as well can also really drive home a report that we talked about earlier in the show in the first hour. And that was from CBS Sports, and that was from Aditi. See if I don't screw this up. Aditi Kinkhabwala. This is what she said on the CBS Sports Network earlier on Thursday.
What I'm being told is that Jackson Dart is not going to fall beyond that number 9 pick and the Saints. Somebody could potentially go above the Saints to try to go get him, but that's not what I'm hearing right now, that is a pick that Kellen Moore really likes.
If you were looking at somebody that might go above the Saints, that's where you might look at a team like Pittsburgh. I don't think the Giants would trade back to go to, like, say 8 with the Panthers or whatnot. Because if they wanted to take Jackson Dart and that's what they were doing to take him, then you could have just taken him at 3. And in that scenario, you wouldn't be drafting Abdul Carter anyway, because you would have traded back in the draft and Carter would not be there anymore. Because whoever you traded with is moving up to take Carter. So, I mean, I think you really look at a team like the Steelers in that regard if somebody were to jump in front of the Saints. But hearing that he won't get past 9, at least by that report, again, there's conflicting reports. Certainly you look at it and you say, okay, the Giants is the favorite to take him, and then his odds for draft position are still off the board over at DraftKings. That was at 24.5 right before I walked in the studio to do this show. And now it's gone. But I hear everybody always talking about this quarterback draft class. And I'm with you. I don't think it's very good either. We had Luke Johnson on. He was talking about, I can't get behind really one of these guys at 9. Or there's a lot of them I can't really get behind in the first round. This is kind of what Luke was telling us. Mickey Loomis, when he met with the media on Wednesday, this is number 14 back, he was asked about his thoughts on the quarterback draft class. And, he didn't give a great answer. But the end of it did strike me.
I think there's guys that are good quarterbacks, really good quarterbacks. And I don't know if the quantity is the same as some other years, but that goes up and down, And look, one thing about that position, I think that you fall in love with somebody. And, I think each of our teams, sometimes that's a different guy.
You fall in love with somebody. That's what you hear in the draft all the time. It's definitely what you hear about quarterbacks. If you love the guy, go get the guy. Take the guy. Again, that's all I want them to do is just be convicted and love who they're going to take and take them. Make the pick. But it was the end of that where he said, and sometimes on our team, that's a different guy for everybody. And I do wonder with all the work that the New Orleans Saints have done on quarterbacks this season, this draft cycle, if that falls 2 different ways. Where, they've done all this work. They're in lockstep. They've sat down. They've talked it out. They know who they like from a quarterback perspective. Or if you do have a little bit of division there and who gets the final call. If it's the Saints front office or if it's Kellen Moore. It should be Kellen Moore. He's the coach and it's going to be his quarterback. But that end of that where it was, and on our team, sometimes that's a different guy for different people. It does cast a little bit of doubt. And maybe, again, Mickey's just playing coy because he doesn't want to tip the hand, and that's fine. The other thing I did want to play was number 25 back. Mickey Loomis was asked point blank if the starting quarterback is on the roster for the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to answer that question because that'll just lead to a bunch of speculation, whichever way I answer it.
I mean, he's not wrong. This is what I'll say. Your franchise quarterback is not on the roster for the New Orleans Saints. I think we all realize that. Will it happen tonight? Round 1 of the draft? We'll see. The odds for Jackson Dart to New Orleans continue to surge, but also for the New York Giants as well. It's going to be fascinating, very entertaining to watch how New Orleans handles things tonight. All right, we're going to grab a break. Come back on the other side. The voice of the Tigers, Chris Blair, joins the show in his weekly spot. It's the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Vaughn and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Whenever I say remodel, you might think, oh, that's a huge project, going to cost a fortune, going to take forever, have to leave my home. Well, that stuff can happen, but that's not really what we're talking about here. To further that point, let's just talk about something simple like a tub to shower conversion. That's not massively expensive. That's not super invasive. That's not super time consuming. It's a simple process that can be done if your bathtub is not used, if it's old and dingy, if it's not functional. You take that bathtub out, put in a glass walk-in shower. It changes the aesthetic, changes the functionality of your bathroom, adds value to your home. And David Vaughn and his team can help you with it every step of the way. They handle everything. You don't call him and then call the guy to handle this part, and this guy handles the floor. And one contractor, one call. It's One Bath and Closets. Find them online at onebathandclosets.com. Get that free consultation and get that process started today. It's One Bath and Closets. Find them online, onebathandclosets.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Back here on the Hunt Palmer Show, Musso in for Hunt. LSU and Tennessee, they'll do battle at the box this weekend, kicking off a rather pivotal stretch for Jay Johnson and his Tigers over the next 3 to 4 weeks as they close out the regular season and conference play. Voice of the Tigers, Chris Blair, he'll be on the call for all of it. He joins us now, of course, on Twitter at LSU Tigers Voice. Chris, it's great to chat outside of Eagle Game Day. How are you?
Hey, Musso, I'm good, man. And did I see Hunt went on vacation the week of the Tennessee-LSU series?
You did, Chris. And look, I asked him the same question late last week. I said, I'm sorry, are you going to be at the beach for LSU-Tennessee? He goes, no, I'll be back. I'll be back in time for the game on Friday. I was like, okay, I just had to check.
Oh, okay.
I had to check. But I was the same way. I was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, come on, man.
I was thinking that's like the friend that schedules a wedding in the fall. Like, what, he didn't know any better than that?
Exactly.
But, okay. That's good.
We only get the schedule about a year in advance, you know. I mean, you can circle
right.
which ones you want to be at. Chris, I kind of obviously want to start with the Tigers and the Vols, but more broad because, look, since Tony Vitello took over as the head coach of Tennessee in 2018, this series has kind of taken on a life of its own. Everybody looks at it as the next budding rivalry in the SEC. You've been on the call for all the matchups between Tony Vitello and the LSU baseball team. What have you made of this series over the last 5 years?
I think it's a great point. I mean, I was talking to John Wilkerson, who does Tennessee baseball and has for 36, 37 years. And, it's interesting because I think as opposed to football and even men's basketball, women's basketball, and for that matter, any sport, I think SEC baseball and maybe college baseball in general, you're going to have several different rivalries, that are right at top of mind. You got your long-standing rivalries, Mississippi State and LSU. You got an Ole Miss and LSU rivalry that kind of heated up a little bit more when Coach Bianco took over. And I think, as you said, the newest one that is at a fever pitch is LSU and Tennessee. And that really started, when Tony got there. And obviously Jay has kept that up. And when you look at over the last 3 or 4 seasons, of what's been on the line and when they've played, whether it's in the regular season or in, Hoover in the SEC tournament or even, obviously in Omaha or in Knoxville for a super regional. Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of those rivalries that has risen so fast that I've got friends from South Carolina who scheduled their trip to go offshore fishing and they're coming to Friday's game, and they're just college baseball fans. And I think you're going to see a lot of people across the country that, again, regardless of what team or conference they're affiliated with, I mean, I think that's where this Tennessee LSU series has kind of taken off. And I think you're exactly right. I think it is, one of the big rivalries now. And that's kind of why I like SEC baseball. I mean, you can go through the list when the schedule comes out and goes, these are the ones we want to go see. But yeah, Tennessee and LSU for college baseball, I think is must see.
Before we get into the games a little bit, just kind of another big picture. I mean, the last time Tennessee was at the box was 2023 and packed in over 13,000 for Skeens Dolander on a Thursday night. I mean, I would assume LSU and they're preparing the box for something similar this weekend as far as attendance.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, we saw the announcements yesterday of over 35,000 there for LSU, Alabama through those 3 games. And I don't know this, but my sense is we'll probably get another graphic early next week, because I think this one, for whatever tickets that aren't gobbled up by, LSU fans who, don't have season tickets or maybe don't go to every game, Tennessee fans are going to travel. And I will give them credit for that. They're kind of a Johnny-come-lately when it comes to baseball. Over the last 10, 20 years, but they're pretty fervent about it. So, yeah, I think it's going to be quite the powder keg, starting on Friday. And that's what's exciting about it.
I mean, I know I'm looking forward to it. I'll be out there all 3 days for sure. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what's going to take place on the field. I don't even really want to go back to Tuesday night because I don't think that's really – it's in the past. That's 2 days old. The focus is on Tennessee now. When you look back at LSU, though, the last 6 games in conference play, what is something that you pinpoint and say, okay, that first and foremost needs to improve in order to match the level of intensity with Tennessee this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's what everybody would say. I think the obvious glaring point is inconsistency out of the bullpen outside of Zach and Kaysen, obviously. And I think, I asked Jay last week if it was about getting some of these guys that we saw take a couple of steps forward. The 2 Connors, obviously, I thought pitched well at Auburn, albeit in a horrible weekend. But they did what they were asked to do. Maverick Rizzi, what he can do and, his talent, and even Jacob Myers. And I said, is it a matter of being able to get those guys to be able to go 2 innings or more or 3 innings or more, kind of middle relief? And, Jay had a good answer. He was like, no, that's not necessarily. He said, we'll take that. That's great. We're just asking them to go in and whether it's get 1 out, pitch an inning, whatever it is, SEC or midweek, we just want them to go out and do what, they can do effectively. And that's been the issue, is that you get a performance like I thought from Jacob Myers in that loss to Auburn in game 1. And then suddenly now you can heave it up there at 98, but you can't find the strike zone. So I think that's number one. I mean, I think, you're going to need to make a strong run. I think at minimum, you're going to need at minimum 7 solid pitchers. If you have any dreams about, getting to Omaha and staying for nearly 2 weeks again, 8 or 9 would be better, but maybe that's a little greedy. But I think right now you don't have faith that you have 7 guys. And then secondly, I think is runners in scoring position. I mean, this was an offense that I don't think any of us were really worried about. And I know some of that's because we weren't playing SEC teams every weekend for the first month plus. But here over the last 2 weekends, it's been concerning. I mean, it's good you win 2 out of 3 from Alabama, but I still think when you need runs, against Auburn, it was a matter of can we get anybody on? And that seemed to be a struggle because they kind of sprayed all of their hits over those 3 games. But once you get guys on, how are we getting them over and getting them in? And that, to me, is something that has just recently occurred that's got to be improved. And I think Friday night's game, runs may come at a premium with Cade Anderson and Liam Doyle. But when they're on, you got to find a way to convert. And I think that's been missing. Do I think it's a major problem? Not really, because we've seen them do it. I just think they're kind of in a slide. But as you pointed out just moments ago, I mean, this next several weeks, the margin of error with the goals you have on the table becomes even tighter.
Yeah, postseason implication in seeding is, at the forefront of just about any conversation when you look at the next 3 weeks specifically for LSU. And to your point with the runners in scoring position, Chris, I'd even add specifically the runner at third base with less than 2 outs. That's been a struggle for them here as of late, and I'm curious to see if they're a little bit more aggressive in that realm. The other big change that we saw in the Alabama series was Game 3 starter, and Chase Shores coming out of the bullpen after Connor Ware served as a bit of an opener. For what it's worth, Chase Shores was announced, pre-series as the starter for that game. This weekend, actually today, when Jay met with the media, announced TBA for Game 3. Do you have a feel or how you might think they may go about that come Sunday against the Vols?
Well, two things. I think, number one, I was expecting to hear that just with the conversation I had with Jay Monday. Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about the decision-making going into this past weekend. And the way it was answered kind of led me to believe that I think that same thought process. I don't know. Again, I'm not speculating they have the answer and they're not sharing it. I just think they'll go through that same process. So that kind of doesn't surprise me all that much. When it comes to what's my best guess come Sunday at 2:00, I'll be honest with you, Musso. I don't really know. Yeah. Because I thought you go with Connor Ware on Sunday, on Saturday, and then Chase was expected. Now, we saw Chase get up and throw on Friday night late in that game. And so that was my first indication that, maybe he's going to, go to a reliever-type mode. And then my thought was, okay, if Connor Ware comes out, gets you off to a good start, which I thought overall he did, then you could come in with Chase, and then all of a sudden you could probably have a pretty good pitcher get you through to like the 6th or 7th, and then boom, hand it over if you've got a lead. And obviously it didn't work out that way. So now when you say who do you think will be the guy who gets it started on Sunday this weekend, I'm not real sure. And some of that I give credit to this coaching staff, because not only are they analyzing Tennessee's season and scouting them going into Game 1, there'll be, real-time scouting as we get through Game 1 and Game 2. So I think that also will bear on the decision. But I could just pick a name, but I would have no idea who I think they'll go with.
It's going to be fascinating, especially going forward. I mean, it looked like you had that rotation kind of in lockstep, and now here you are in late April, and it's that's not when you really want to see the change. But they got plenty of arms and are plenty talented enough to figure that out. Chris Blair, of course, he'll be on the call this weekend for all 3 games with former Tiger Doug Thompson. Chris, before I let you go, though, I would love a thought on tonight's NFL draft getting underway and the LSU guys. I mean, that you've seen excel in a Tiger football uniform. Will Campbell, Mason Taylor, obviously Swinson and Jones, and plenty more. I mean, I think everyone's looking like 6 probably definitely going to have their name called over the next 3 days, but there's plenty more who could slip in at the back end of this draft and surprise some people.
No, I think so. I mean, I think it's a pretty good group of guys that are, put their name into the draft coming out of LSU, and they've all had, I think, really big impacts on the program, both short-term and long-term. And, to me, Will's the kind of guy that it's always funny because if you pay attention to X and social media over the last 2 weeks leading up to the draft, that's when you start to hearing unnamed source, anonymous assistant coach says. And I know with Will, it's been about arm length and all this other stuff. But again, I think a lot of that is gamemanship, just trying to throw off the scent of what they're going to do. I mean, everybody's trying to nail down who's going to take who. But I think LSU is putting another great crop of talent in there. I mean, most of the things I've seen on Mason Taylor is that he's already carbon copied, ready to go, insert him into an offense and let him be kind of that possession tight end receiver for you. And I think that's the role. I think a team that's looking for that more so than maybe a traditional blocking tight end, although I think Mason certainly has worked on that. But I think a sure-handed receiver across the middle of the field is with his skills is going to put him far well. And I think there's a number of defensive guys. I mean, I think when all is said and done for the opening day of the draft, I think there will be a few surprises as far as who goes that first day that maybe 3 months ago, 6 months ago, we weren't sure about. And, that, again, just goes to the legend it is LSU football. I mean, they put people into the pros and, more times than not, they have successful careers. And I think deep down inside, all of these front offices know that. And I don't think it'll be any different in 2025.
The surprises are what makes the draft so much fun and so entertaining to follow over the next 3 days. Chris Blair, he's the voice of the Tigers on Twitter X at LSU Tigers Voice. Again, he'll be on the call for all three against with LSU against Tennessee this weekend with Doug Thompson. Y'all tune in. Chris, we appreciate the time. Thank you.
Yeah, Musso, see you at the box.
Absolutely. Again, that is Chris Blair. We're going to grab a break. We'll come back on the Hunt Palmer Show, and we'll kind of delve a little bit deeper into that conversation we punctuated our chat with Chris Blair about the LSU guys. Will Campbell, when the Patriots go on the clock at 4 tonight, he's going to make LSU history. And it's an awesome bit of history that we've talked about a little bit throughout, but it deserves a little bit more recognition. And just how much has Mason Taylor risen on draft boards? We'll give you a preview of the LSU guys in the NFL draft next here on The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Celebrate the NFL draft in style with the 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge Draft Party live from Don Juan Cigar Bar and exclusively on the 104.5 ESPN YouTube channel. Join us tonight at 7 p.m. and hang with the ESPN Baton Rouge team while indulging in the finest cigars paired with signature cocktails. It's the 104.5 ESPN Draft Party, all happening at Don Juan Cigar Bar and live on 104.5 ESPN YouTube channel.
Y'all get over to Don Juan tonight. That is going to be a blast. It always is. I will tell you the draft companion show party deal is my favorite remote event that we do every year. It's a lot of fun. It's our whole lineup, getting on the mic at different times. I mean,
2 words: Island Hanny.
Island Hanny.
That's all you need to know.
I mean, Otter sitting there losing his mind after the Vikings drafted Lewis Sine one year because it cashed a ticket for him. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of fun. Y'all going tonight?
No, I'm actually heading out of town tonight, so will not be there.
That's
I would.
right.
I
You're not
would.
here tomorrow.
Yeah, I would be there though, but not tonight.
I know you're not going.
No, Cassie's going to be there. She's going to be analyzing.
Cassie's getting on the mic.
Yeah.
We're going to put Cassie on the mic tonight at Don Juan. Yeah, for sure. Yep. Absolutely. Well, anyway, y'all go ahead. Y'all get by Don Juan Cigar Bar tonight for the start of the draft and go hang out. Man, I know Scone will be there. Rivers, T-Bob. It's a lot. Hanny and Ott will be there. If Hanny's not in a Hawaiian shirt, y'all give him hell for that. But that should be a phenomenal time. It is every single year. All right. Speaking of the draft, we've gone through an hour and a half of this show, and we haven't talked really about the LSU guys. We talked a little bit about it with Chris Blair there in the last segment, but I kind of wanted to broaden the conversation as well, because starting with Will Campbell at number 4, he's going to make history. And, for all the talk and about his arm length and the debate and whatnot, you can have all those conversations throughout the lead up to the draft. And whenever you get to this point in the process, it's always like, okay, man, tape don't lie. Turn on the tape and watch. And that's clearly what Mike Vrabel and the New England Patriots have done. Will Campbell right now is minus 500 to be the number 4 overall pick. He is going to the New England Patriots. He will be there to protect Drake May's blindside. And when he goes 4th overall, Will Campbell will become just the 2nd offensive lineman in LSU history taken in the 1st round, the 1st since Alan Faneca in 1998. And Will Campbell will be the 1st tackle from LSU ever selected in the 1st round. And, that's a big yo. Like, when you look back at Will Campbell's career at LSU, and we'll have plenty of time to do this as well on tomorrow's show, but this is just the feather in the cap that solidifies him as the best to come out of LSU ever. That's a guy who day one started at left tackle for you, protected the blind side of a Heisman Trophy winner, and then Garrett Nussmeier as well, when Nussmeier put up the 2nd highest single season passing total in LSU history. A lot of that, in large part, is due to having Will Campbell on your line, keeping those guys clean. From day one, to start as a freshman at a position like left tackle, and not only start, but have the success that Will Campbell had. In his entire 3-year career at LSU, 3 sacks given up. And when you look at who some of those guys were he gave up sacks to, Jared Verse. That guy's in the league. He's pretty darn good. Kyle Kennard, he's going to hear his name called over the next 3 days. He's pretty good. Any words you try to put behind it, any quantifiers you try to add, I just keep coming back to he's the best. He's the best one. And he's going to leave behind hella big shoes to fill. But that's a conversation for a different day. But man, at a place like LSU, where you've had so many great players over the course of 125 years plus of football, you're nearing 135 years now. For a guy to come in and rewrite the history and set the standard like Will Campbell did, that's awesome. And it all comes to a head tonight when the Patriots go on the clock at number 4. And man, that's going to be a really, really cool moment. And LSU's had a lot of those in the first round as of late. Whether it was Joe Burrow going 1 overall to the Bengals and, coming off the season that he had in the Heisman Trophy, the national championship, and look, he's the best. He's the GOAT. Whether it was Jaden Daniels last year, Jamar Chase the year before that, you had guys who came in and rewrote the standard, reset the standard at LSU for their positions. You have another one Thursday night in Will Campbell. And that's awesome. And I can't wait to see history happen when the New England Patriots turn in their draft card at pick number 4. Congratulations are in order in advance to Will Campbell. This is the punctuation of a phenomenal LSU career, which when it comes to offensive linemen and tackle in particular, we will always look back and compare it to. That will be Will Campbell. After Will Campbell goes is where you look at kind of the next storyline for LSU that's starting to evolve. And that's Mason Taylor. Mason Taylor is really that next guy who could sneak in at the back end of the first round and give LSU 2 when a lot of people think it's just going to be 1. You could find plenty of mock drafts out there here on draft day on Thursday where you see Taylor slide in late. If he doesn't, he will be a very early day 2 pick in that second round. 100%. But with Mason Taylor, you have something very similar with Will Campbell. And that's, again, why I really wanted to focus mainly on those 2 guys. Mason Taylor's the same way. He came to LSU and he reset the standard at tight end. He broke records. And while the tight end position at LSU has been very undervalued in the past, and you've seen guys even fight through it being undervalued and put up numbers like, Richard Dixon, like Thad Moss, guys in that, in the most recent history of LSU, Mason Taylor outshined them all. And in the same vein where Will Campbell stepped on the field as a freshman and made a statement, Mason Taylor did the same thing in early November of 2022 when LSU beat Alabama in Tiger Stadium. Everyone's going to remember the catch to win it in overtime. How about the catch to take the lead in the fourth quarter, 24-21, in the north end zone corner? You don't set a bigger standard for your career and make a bigger statement than that. As a freshman, he did it, and he lived up to all of it, leaving LSU as leader in receptions career and in yards by a tight end. And look, you have a bright future of that position with Trey'Dez Green. You got Bauer Sharp for a year. You've recruited well there. And when all of those guys don the purple and gold, put on the pad, strap the helmet, they go out there, they will all be compared to Mason Taylor. That is the one thing I am rooting for most of all in the draft on Thursday night, is for Mason Taylor to find his way into the back end of the first round, much like Clyde did in the 2020 draft to the Chiefs. Can Taylor find his way in there? Because he's earned it, and it would be a very fitting reward, and again, a fitting way for him to punctuate his LSU career, just like we talked about Will Campbell. But when both of those guys inevitably go in the draft, that will be a moment of celebration for the LSU football program and a great crescendo for those guys' career. Outside of that, I'll tell you the guys I'm really curious to see are Braden Swinson and Savion Jones, kind of first and foremost. Where Emory Jones and Miles Frazier land, I'm intrigued by that as well. But I think that's likely day 2, day 3. With Jones and Swinson in particular, because there's been folks on our airwaves, like on this station throughout the draft process, especially with Swinson, who have wondered if he won't, really force his way up. Whether that be early day 2 or if he settles in early day 3. Braden Swinson's career at LSU is fascinating to me because you'll remember when he got to LSU and transferred in from Oregon, he wasn't the headliner at the edge spot. A lot of people thought that was going to be Ovie Ogofu, remember? I mean, he was going to be the guy to really fill the shoes of B.J. Ojulari, who was off to the draft, and kind of take up the mantle. And ultimately, that was a tough spot for you in 2023. And towards the end, Swinson became your best pass rusher. He didn't get home a lot, but he led your team in QB pressures. And then in 2024, he was on historic pace. He was on pace to match Arden Key early in the year in sacks for a single season at LSU. That waned a little bit, but from a guy who wasn't very heralded transferring in from Oregon, he became your best pass rusher. And I think he falls into that category of steal. As is a guy like Savion Jones. As is a guy like Emory Jones and Miles Frazier. And even Garrett Dellinger. Any of the guys outside of Campbell and Taylor fall into potential steal and value pick for an NFL franchise. Because the one thing you know about all those guys, they're going to go in there, going to work harder than anybody else. They're going to leave it all out there on the field. Because it's what they did in their time at LSU. When it wasn't always the best when it came to a win-loss record. I'm fired up to see all of those guys start the next step in their career. And then, man, look. A guy like Josh Williams, who had a fantastic pro day, someone take a flyer on him late in the second round? Excuse me, in the second round. Late in the 7th round? That's something to watch on day 3. Zy Alexander played some really good football. Where does he fall into this category? It's going to be fascinating and really exciting to watch those guys punctuate their LSU career and kind of get their reward here over the next 3 days of the NFL draft. We'll keep you covered on with all of it here on 105 ESPN, especially on the Hunt Palmer Show. That'll be a big part of the show tomorrow, is recapping the LSU guys and previewing their days 2 and 3 in the NFL draft. All right, we're going to grab a break. We're going to come back on the other side of that break. We'll wrap up the Hunt Palmer Show here on draft day next. Stay here.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com. They're the only fully exclusive Genesis dealer in the state of Louisiana, and they're right here in Baton Rouge. I told y'all earlier this week, we were driving, my wife goes, "Oh, that's that car I really like. It's a Genesis." And she had no idea that I even do this. I was like, yeah, they're really nice. They're really, really nice. And you should know it too. You don't see a ton of Genesis on the road because it's fairly new to our city here. They've only been at that location for a year and a half, but go check it out. It's a luxury luxury vehicle. It's a luxury experience to be a Genesis driver. That means 3 years of complimentary maintenance, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. It's a luxury experience at a reasonable price over at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every single car that's on the lot at Genesis of Baton Rouge is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. And all of them, every single model, from the entry level to the highest end, come with the same safety features. Safety is a priority for Genesis. Go check them out. Genesis of Baton Rouge. They're online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. That's Genesis of Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
All right, wrap it up a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Do a little take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
Not Patrick from SpongeBob. That's fantastic. Beck, what you got for me?
All righty. The first one here. The Otter will hit on at least 2 bets tonight. Take it or leave it.
Oh, I'm taking that. Otter's going to have a fantastic night. I mean, come on. Beck, what are we talking? It's the Otter.
I know. I'm just trying to gauge the room, get the pulse on the crowd here.
Over. I'll smash the over on 2 for Otter.
All right, next one here. T-Bob will have at least 4 mezcals. Take it or leave it.
Over. I'll take the over. I'll take that one too. Yeah, I'm taking that. T-Bob at Don Juan. I've seen that many a time, and it will be more than 4. Yes.
All right, next one here. The Saints will trade back into the first. Take it or leave it.
I'm gonna take that.
I'll take it.
There's a lot of smoke there. It's just if they can get in front of the Giants. It really depends on what New York does, but I think this has kind of been the Saints' plan all along when it comes to quarterback, is to trade back in. So I will take that, even though the draft is incredibly unpredictable. But yes, I think they do trade back in.
All right, last one here. The Red Sox are down 2 in the bottom of the 7th. They will get the win. Take it or leave it.
I'm leaving that.
Leave it alone.
I'm leaving that. You know why? Because Alex Bregman isn't due up again until the 8th inning. He's the only one that's driven in any runs today. He's got a solo homer. Oh, gosh, I'm doing the Hunt thing. When you always ask him about the Cubs at the end and he gets all pissed off.
Yeah, that's the point.
Bregman's got a solo homer, and then he's got another RBI knock. I believe it was a double earlier in the game. No, I'm sorry. It was a single. Nobody else wants to drive in runs for the Boston Red Sox right now.
At least Trevor Story's hitting a little bit.
Trevor Story's hitting. I like. We finally have him healthy. That's great. I've been very pleased with Christian Campbell so far in his rookie season. Jaron Duran's been great out of the leadoff spot as normal. Devers finally isn't striking out every time he's at the plate. Wilyer Abreu's cooled down a little bit. I mean, he was on gangbusters to start the season. But you got to have somebody else besides Alex Bregman score drive-in runs.
You do.
Shout out to Breggs, though.
All right, that's it for Take It or Leave It.
All right.
But yes, that intro, that the Patrick was definitely something that I made sure we had to include in there.
Yeah.
I thought that was perfect for it.
Take it or leave it. I like the other one is the pirate, and they're doing the wishes. Make it 5.
Yeah, make it 5. Make it 3.
Yeah, it's
Take it or leave it.
It's so good. God, Patrick from SpongeBob, what a character! What a character, Patrick Starr. All right, that's going to wrap it up here for the Hunt Palmer Show. Enjoyed filling in today. 2 hours, man. That really, really flies by. Considering normally when I'm in the chair, it's a 3-hour show. 2 hours goes very quickly. Thank you to Beck. Thank you to Cassie. Whole gang back together on Friday. We're recapping the draft for the Saints perspective and the LSU, giving you a preview and our final thoughts on LSU and Tennessee. Matt Moscona coming up next from Lafayette, live with AFR.
The Hunt Palmer Show.